250 different ones. And maybe that's roughly that's the sort of chaotic innovation you can't get to those 10 just by thinking your way through it. You need to kind of experiment and play with it. And most of them had a short shelf life, and you got to be thinking about what is the true cost of doing this? Because sometimes I think we roll ourselves into a sense of, if we just plan this out better, it'll be cheaper over the long run. And in fact, what we see is it's not actually cheaper over the long run. It becomes very expensive. You don't have any of the competitive pressure. And it's not just internal competitive pressure, it's the outside where the enemy gets a vote, as we say. So yeah, as they're changing, we're going to realize that we need different weapons. One of the lessons that I really highlight in the book is it's not actually what your weapon system does today that's determinative of victory. It's how quickly you can change your weapon system to what you need it to do tomorrow. This is why, like the work with Detachment 201, like the organic ability for green suiters to reprogram their weapon systems to do new and innovative things in combat is truly the advantage. It's kind of like the meta advantage. It's not literally just what does it do today, but how malleable is this weapon system to what I'm going to need it to be able to do tomorrow? How much of that can I do as I'm fighting? We see the Ukrainians do quite a bit of that, right? And certainly a large-scale it's not a one-to-one mapping between what's happening in Ukraine and what's going to happen, but there are absolutely lessons to learn. One of those meta lessons, another one, is before the war, many of these infantrymen in Ukraine, I think the average age is 41 for Ukrainian infantry, many of them actually work in outsourcing firms. They actually have technical skills. Now, the infantryman is not writing code, but because they understand the technology, they're able to ask very precise feature requests. Like, hey, I need it to do this. And they know whether their request is going to take 1 hour, 1 day, 1 week, 1 month. And they titrate their request relative to, like, yeah, within a month, I might be dead. I'll settle for this capability in a day that I can use to apply effects on the adversary. So it makes them better customers. And that alone, like, we need folks in combat arms who are principally experts in their combat arms, but also have enough technical literacy to view software as a weapon system that they know how to wield and fight off of.
That's just, so these guys they're in direct communication with who's manufacturing this shit. We don't have, at least when I was in, we don't have that. Are we getting that?
That's one of the things changing. So if you look at the under Secretary Hegseth's leadership, this move from what are they, PEOs, program executive offices, to PAEs, these portfolio acquisition executives. The whole idea is, hey, specify less. Let's hold the objective. We know what we're trying to accomplish. Let's delegate more authority down. Let's create more iterative, collaborative engagement to decide what we're going to need. Let's not pretend like we know everything up front. We're going to discover it as we go through it. And I've seen recent acquisition programs where there are Army green suiters who are developers, who are part of exercise. So they're not just saying, hey, the capability does what we think it needs to do today. Also, they're evaluating what is our ability as the Army to write new code on top of this and change what we want it to do, to integrate things we've built on our own into this. Is it cohesive? Is it interoperable? We're determining that at design time rather than, hey, we got it and we're trying to retrofit it later on and realizing we're stuck. So I'm optimistic that we're moving in the right direction and that we have the talent we need, we have the capabilities to do this as a country. We now have the will to blow shit up and prioritize winning again.
Let's talk about unity. How do we get back to unity? That's a big missing component here.
Yeah. It's probably the thing I care most about. No civilization is going to be great unless it believes in itself, unless it's proud of itself. And I think no nation has more to be proud of than America. But if you kind of just immerse yourself in the zeitgeist, that's not the vibe. There's a lot of infighting. There's a lot of disunity. We've forgotten what makes us one. And I think a lot of that comes down to storytelling. There's part of this is represented in our media. A lot of our stories today have really anti-heroes. The hero of some movie is a drug addict, or certainly not someone you'd want your child to grow up to be. And if you just rewind, you go back to the 80s and 90s, whether it's Hunt for Red October or Red Dawn or Rambo 3, we had a very different take. And yeah, they were complicated heroes. It's not Pravda, it's not propaganda, it's entertainment. But it gave you that feeling. And I think that's really important because that is really our soft power, not only for the American people, But, I think about my father, who came to America never having been here. He had a fully formed concept of America in his head, which was driven by media, by entertainment. Like, we were a strong, powerful country. I think even things like Maduro, even our most hardened cynics overseas say, wow, that was really cool. Like, that's just super competent, And I think we have to acknowledge that not only does the world want a strong America, it doesn't want an America full of self-loathing. The American people want that too. And there's a real opportunity right now to go tell those stories and to remind us that we are always striving for a more perfect world, that belief in oneself is critical. And on the facts, we have a lot to get out of.
Is this why you're getting into media? You're trying to bring unity?
Yeah, I want to tell positive stories. Like, I really, it came back to wanting to watch movies with my kids again, and that feeling. And I started looking around, and some of it's very subtle. So, I grew up in the shadow of the Space Coast in Orlando, and it's hard. Do you think I would grow up to be a CTO if I hadn't been here? I think the answer is maybe not, because what was in the zeitgeist in Orlando at the time? You would go to the elementary school courtyard and watch the shuttle launch. You would wake up to double sonic booms on a Saturday morning as shuttle re-entered. It was this sense of America is a badass country. Look at what we're capable of from a science and technology perspective. And importantly, the subtext is the future is going to be better through science and technology and hard work. I had a classmate in elementary school whose father designed the landing gear on the F-117A. And man, when we disclosed that asset existing, he was like the most popular kid in class, even though it was just the landing gear. And this pride in what we're building, and this pride of togetherness. It didn't matter if you're left or right. When I grew up, if you were flying the American flag, that was not politically coded. No party should have a monopoly on patriotism. That's the one thing that binds us all. And then, yeah, like any family, we can fight about lots of things. We can disagree about things, especially if it's coming from a purity of perspective of wanting the country to be better. And so I don't think we're gonna win these things just by arguing. Mm-hmm. The arguing is not going to go away, but I'd like us to remind ourselves that we're Americans first. And I think a big part of this is, like, what are we passing on to our kids? We've been here before as a country. If you go back to Vietnam, a lot of our movies were very cynical, kind of this sense that we kind of screwed up the world as a country, and that was represented in our media, represented in the zeitgeist. Coming out of Vietnam, though, you think about the Reagan era. I think Reagan's real contribution was just being a positive leader. It's going to be morning again in America. We are great. We're capable of doing good things. It set the conditions for people to abandon the nihilism, reabsorb optimism, and actually make things again. And we're at the precipice of that. When you look at Isaiah at Valor, like, we are making things again. And it's not just one point example with Isaiah. You span it out, all the people that you've had here. Maybe it starts with defense tech because it's so motivating to protect the nation. But I think it's going to expand to every part of our economy. And rejecting nihilism is so important in our youth. There's a temptation to just say, like, burn it all down. There's maybe there's a growing up phase where you go through that, but like helping our youth exit that and understand that what we've built is worth fighting for is so critical.
It seems like a lot of people need to get more solution-based instead of just complaining all the fucking time.
100%. What are we going to do about it?
You're pretty close with Isaiah, maybe, huh?
Yeah, I've been really impressed with him. I mean, he's an exceptional human being. I kind of have this, as you can tell from the Heretics and Heroes thing, like I'm magnetically attracted to people who are powerfully driven towards a vision, almost a crazy vision. Like, you're not like a triple PhD in physics. What makes you qualified to do this? But it embodies the belief in self. And those are the people you want to back, right? Those are the people who are never going to stop. They're never going to give up. They're the people when you look at them, like, yeah, I'd like my son to learn a thing or two from Isaiah. I'd like my daughter to learn a thing or two from Brandon. These are the role models that I don't see in TV anymore, but that actually are going to determine the future trajectory of our nation and inspire greatness.
That's why I'm bringing them on, Sham.
Amen.
too.
You're the antidote to the cynical media we have.
Oh, wow. I appreciate that. Well, it's been a fascinating conversation, and it's great to see you again.
Always a pleasure. Thanks for everything you do, Sean.
Thank you. Cheers. No matter where you're watching the Sean Ryan Show from, if you get anything out of this at all, anything, please like, comment, and subscribe. And most importantly, share this everywhere you possibly can. And if you're feeling extra generous, head to Apple Podcasts and Spotify and leave us a review.
State of the Union address, in light of widespread revelations of fraud in federally funded programs in states like Minnesota and California, this executive order in front of you will establish a new task force aimed at rooting out that fraud, returning potentially billions or tens of billions or even hundreds of billions of dollars to the American taxpayer. This task force will be chaired by the Vice President. The Vice Chairman will be the head of the FTC, Andrew Ferguson, who's with us here as well today. But this is going to launch a whole-of-government approach to rooting out the very serious problem of fraud in federally funded programs around the country.
Great. Did Vance lose weight? I feel like he lost weight.
And seems pretty big in Minnesota, 19
Maybe I've
billion.
just seen
For one little aspect of the fraud, it's $19 billion, and California, they say, is 10 times worse, and other states are
Probably more than that.
This is not a Republican Democrat thing. This is wherever it's taking place. It seems that it's usually in blue states. If it's in a red state, we're going there too. But it seems that it's heavily, heavily, heavily Democrat. And what they've done is so sad. When you look at the Minnesota scam, a lot of it has to do with Somalia. Nobody's calling out anybody, but a lot of it has to do, but it's Somalia and plenty of others. And I believe the governor is complicit. I believe Ilhan Omar is complicit. I believe that your Attorney General is complicit, and if they are, you're going to hopefully find out about it, and you're going to have to do what you have to do. If we found half of the fraud that's taking place in this country, and I think there's a chance of doing that, we would have much more than a balanced budget. That's the kind of numbers we're talking about. The theft is incredible, and I think JD will make and Andrew will make a charge later on that local states should handle nursing homes and all of these things that the federal government shouldn't be involved in. It's too big. The federal government should handle military and a couple of other things. But when it comes to nursing homes, you saw where a young gentleman was going around and knocking on doors and none of the nursing homes existed, none of the nurseries existed. The money that's being paid out, and the federal government pays for it. When you see all these people coming in illegally into our country, many criminals, many drug dealers, murderers, 11,888 murders, and you look at California, and more come in.
He does.
And yet they pay them. You know why they pay them? Because the federal government is charged with paying. We're not paying them anymore, and I said that.
Young gentleman.
So these two really smart guys are going to be, I think it's going to, hopefully it's going to be, this will not be like a Kamala where she was put in charge of the border and she never went there, JD, right? You promise?
I promise, sir.
Remember Kamala was put in charge. She was the border czar. She never went to the border. She never called any of the great border patrol. The border patrol testified. We never spoke to her in 4 years. And that was a disaster.
I like how it just says Kamala and people start laughing.
I think maybe before JD, I'll ask Stephen Miller to say a few words.
Well, under President Trump's leadership, as we've seen, the illegal flow across the southern border stopped completely. And what we found since President Trump came into office is that the Democrats have set up a system to funnel hundreds of billions and ultimately trillions of dollars to migrants that are in our country, oftentimes from places like Somalia. So as an example, ICE recently asked a group of illegal immigrants that were in detention whether or not they were receiving Medicaid. Half of them raised their hand and volunteered that they were on Medicaid. Just volunteered. These are the ones who are hiding it, right? They also asked illegal aliens how they paid their medical bills, and they said that if they don't have Medicaid, they go to hospitals, they get free care there, and they bill it to the taxpayers. So they aren't paying for any of their own health care in the state. This is one example. And we've seen this over and over and over again. So under President Trump's leadership, and then of course with JD and the head of the FTC, Andrew Ferguson, we are going to see the first ever effort in American history to reclaim the ultimately trillions of dollars that were stolen from taxpayers. I believe, and I know President Trump believes, that when this theft is exposed, we will see that if all of it were stopped, it would be enough to balance the budget. The extraction of wealth from American taxpayers, the people who don't belong here, is the primary cause of the national debt, and this is the first ever effort to shut that down. Thank you.
opportunity for years.
There
It's
he
the
is.
first ever.
There he is, right
And
there.
it's got to be stopped.
Holy
It's gotta be
shit.
stopped.
Finally saying it?
Think
Yeah.
of it, Somalia is a third world, maybe a fourth
Bozos
world
on
nation.
notice.
One of the worst, one of the most dangerous. They don't have
Did he
anything.
call it a
They don't
fourth
have
world?
councils. They don't have government. They don't have police. They shoot each other all over the place. They come here and they steal $19 billion. That's crazy. And Ilhan Omar, I hope this is part of it, but she married her brother supposedly. I mean, there's a lot of documentation. That means she's here illegally and she's a congresswoman.
Get her out, bro.
And I hope you're going to be looking at that, or
Get
somebody
the
is,
bitch out.
because she's one of the ringleaders here. She's
Fourth
bad news.
world
She's really bad
country.
news. She's so bad for our country. Anyway,
Wow.
JD,
True.
please say a few words.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you, Mr. President. This is a very important whole of government approach to tackle
Yes.
the fraud problem. And let me just tell
Bring
one
you
story.
on back.
One of the things that even before this executive order was signed that we were able to stop under the president's leadership is we saw evidence that in Minneapolis there were Somalis, primarily illegal immigrants, who were defrauding a Medicaid program that was meant to go to autistic children. So they were taking children, trying to get benefits, and they were claiming that their kids were actually autistic even though they weren't.
Yes.
And what did this mean? This
They're
meant two
stupid.
things. Number one, you had a lot of people getting rich off of fraud while American citizens got poor. And
Yep.
the second thing that it meant is that you had autistic kids in Minneapolis, in suburban Minneapolis, who weren't getting benefits they needed because
Exactly, yeah.
Somali fraudsters were literally
Yep.
stealing out of their pocket. It's got to stop. And unfortunately,
The
that kind
opportunity
of fraud
cost.
is one example of probably hundreds just within the state of Minneapolis, and then it's repeated and replayed all over the United States of America. When we first started talking
I
about
think
this
he needs
problem,
a
the
bigger
president
beard.
made it very clear he wanted
Like
us
down
to
to
take
here.
the fraud problem seriously because nobody had until he was president. We started to figure out one big hole that existed is that the agencies of the government weren't actually talking to each other.
Yeah.
So Treasury would have evidence
Exactly.
of financial fraud, but wasn't talking to the Department of Justice about
Yep.
it. Health and Human Services had evidence of Medicaid fraud, but wasn't talking to the
No
Department of
systems
Treasury about it.
analysis.
So what this executive order does is force the entire apparatus of the federal government to do two things: stop the fraud in the American
And triple the
taxpayer
work.
and make sure that the benefits that ought by right go to American citizens go to
embarrassing,
American
it is.
citizens and not to fraudsters. Andrew Ferguson will be the vice chair and is going to do a great job. If you're curious what's the difference between the vice chair and the chair, the vice chair is going to do all the work. Now I'm going to take all the credit. Andrew.
Yeah, look, I mean, millions and millions of Americans pay into these programs every day, and they expect to get something out of it. And this fraud is just siphoning
Awesome.
money that millions of Americans pay to fund their hospitals, to fund their daycare centers, into completely fake businesses.
That's
it isn't
right.
just unfair to all of us as
Who is this guy?
taxpayers
I
who
need to
pay
DM
for
him.
all this.
What's his
it's
name?
particularly unfair to the Americans who need
I'ma follow
this
him on
the
Twitter.
most and watch this money leave their hospital, leave their school system, and go out to
Andrew
fraud.
what?
And that is why this effort is so important. And I think we've just begun really looking at this, but I think
Andrew
that one of the things
Ferguson.
we're going to find is that in a lot of these agencies, the previous administration was pretty lax about existing anti-fraud controls, and we're going to expose that too.
Yeah, true.
I
And
would
that's
take the
it's
word pretty
intentional.
out. I would change it with
Okay. No, he's not on Twitter.
unbelievably lax.
Yeah.
They weren't. Not
Yeah,
even
let me
lax.
know. He
Lax
has
isn't
Twitter, I'll
even
DM
the
him.
word. The previous administration was fraudulent.
You gotta get these roaches,
Okay,
bro.
and I think that's what you're going to find also. And, you know, we worked so hard, like most favored nations drug prices. For
Yeah.
years, people have wanted. We paid the highest drug prices anywhere in the world by far. By 5 times, 6 times, 10 times. More than London would be paying in New York, and more than any city in Europe is paying in our cities. We would have a pill that would sell for $10 in Munich. In Germany, it would sell for $10, and in New York, it would be $130. And we worked so hard,
It's live, yes, live.
and we pulled it off. It's called Most Favored Nations. So now we went from by far the most expensive drugs anywhere in the world, prescription
cheapest.
drugs,
No, not cheapest,
to
but
the
cheap.
least expensive. And I had to get all the
Been
nations
subsidized
to
medical
agree, and
research
I don't
in
want to
the
bore you
entire
with how
world.
I did it, but I did it.
He did
Everyone
it.
said it was
Wow.
impossible to do, including
Everybody
the
said
drug
it.
companies. And we did
Everybody
it.
said it was
we worked so
impossible.
hard on it.
But he did
And we're
it.
going to save so much money for the people. Your drug
That tie
prices are going to be
sucks.
dropping at levels never even by
That tie
50,
sucks
60,
so
70,
much, Dick.
80% in some cases.
What a
But
shitty tie.
you work so hard, and then you see them stealing $19 billion. It's like in one pocket, out the
I don't
other.
like it.
And I think
I don't
Andrew
like
and
it.
JD, I think are maybe one of the most important jobs.
They do.
Maybe it could be one of the most important things that we're signing because
Thank you, sir.
I really believe that they have an opportunity to do something so good for our country. People talk about balancing budgets. You can't balance a budget when people are stealing $19 billion. Nobody's ever heard of anything like it.
Yeah.
We had, I guess, in the same state, you went autism, where 4 or 5 years ago, we spent $1 million, and now it's
like
almost
37.
$400 million in just a few years. Well,
Damn, those
autism
kids is retarded.
didn't go up like that, and even the $1 million was probably a fraud. It went from $1 million to almost $400 million in just a few years. These are crooked people. They basically said everybody in the state had autism. These are crooked, horrible people. And, I was elected on with JD, Make America Great Again.
I've heard of that.
And we can't have this stuff happening.
Right.
We have to be respected. And they left. So I'm going to sign this. We'll take some questions, but let me sign this first before I don't forget. Before I decide not to, okay?
Yes, sir.
I don't forget not to, but maybe I'll decide not to. I would decide not to. If I didn't think they could do the job, I would decide not to. But that'll be a terrible thing. I think they're going to find numbers.
Is that
Andrew,
right?
I think you're going to
I
find
never
numbers
forget.
that are far higher than you even think. And Andrew came to us. He said, "Sir, we read the stories about Minnesota. We know California
Saw it on
is
Twitter.
many times worse. Minnesota's terrible. They're all terrible.
Beautiful.
Those cities are terrible. New York is
Starting
terrible.
to show his age. He is almost
What's
80.
going on in Chicago, Illinois, with that slob of a governor is terrible. And the kind of money we're
Oh,
talking
Fatty? I
about
remember Fatty.
is just country changing. It's country changing. It's having a deficit to having a really profitable country
Yeah.
where you can lower your taxes substantially.
That's his name, just Fatty.
And I think that's
Everybody
I think
knows
you have
who
an
it is.
opportunity to do it. And I think you two guys are the right guy. If you guys can't do it, got a problem.
Well,
Because nobody else will
they
be
let
able
me.
to do
I
it.
thought it would be easy.
So I'll sign, and then we'll take some nice questions from
Wow.
our wonderful media.
I love how that's a joke. Great, finally.
Okay.
Good one.
Good one.
Here you go.
Fucking stupid idiot.
Very important. That's a big
Dumbass.
deal. We've been working
Drop
on
the
this
pen.
very long. Steve, right? Will?
Yes, sir.
Andrew, do you have a question?
Yes, Mr. President. You said during your State of the Union that this type of fraud, the corruption, is the type of thing that can shred the fabric of a nation.
He's right.
Why do you suppose then that leaders in recent memory haven't looked at the systemic amount of fraud that's
Because
been
they're
taking
crooked.
place? And how
Because
much
they're
is-
crooked.
Yeah.
They make money.
True. Simple.
They gain power. They use it for power.
Exactly.
Like with the Somalians, they vote in a block.
Yep,
100%.
there it is.
They make a
Racial
deal with the
block
Somalians.
voting.
They all vote because they're on a gravy
Free
train.
money. See, he's been watching the stream.
It's a company. It's money first,
Yep.
power second. A lot of people say power first now.
I think it's power
money
first, but okay.
Power second. Do you ever see where like Mercedes? People come over from Somalia. They have no money, and now they're buying Mercedes-Benz cars. Okay, it's more cash goes out of the Minnesota airport than any other place in the world.
Why is that? Where's it
We
going?
can find it. And Minnesota is really bad. The governor's corrupt. The attorney general is totally corrupt. Just like the New York State Attorney General, Letitia James. She's a highly
She's that
corrupt
bitch trying to sue
person.
Valve.
Bragg, the DA, is a corrupt person. They're all corrupt. These
Yeah.
are corrupt people.
I gotta take a piss.
And we got too many of them in our country. And we have to expose them, and we have to catch them. And if these two guys can't, these are high IQ people. I've always liked high IQ. These are high IQ people. If they don't do it, they're going to go a long way, fellas, to find somebody else that's going to. We have no choice. If honestly, and they may not do a good job. If they don't do a good job,
Thank you, sir.
it's possible. If they don't do a good job, the country's sort of in trouble. Yes, go ahead.
Sir, 2 questions.
And I think they're going to do a great job. Go ahead.
First, Mr. Vice President, Democrats are already calling you the fraud czar. What's your reaction to that title? And then second, given
I like
your
it.
past skepticism of foreign adventurism, are you completely on board with the current war in Iran?
So I like fraud czar. It's certainly what we're going to do. And look, we have to do it. As the president said, this is a problem that has festered in this country for far too long, and far too few people have actually wanted to do anything about it. That's what makes this administration different, is that we actually tackle the problems the American people have been confronting. So I'm very happy about it. And look, I think that I know what you're trying to do, Phil. You're trying to drive a wedge between members of the administration, between me and the president.
Did he say
what
the
the
N-word?
president said consistently, going back to 2015, and I agree with him, is that Iran should not have a nuclear weapon.
Oh, yeah.
We have taken this military action under the president's leadership. I think all of us, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, should pray for its success and pray for the safety of our troops. That's the approach that I've taken. Make it as successful as possible.
So there's no hesitation, given your past statements with the current operation?
What do you mean there's no hesitation with my past statements?
Given your skepticism of foreign adventurism, you were a critic of the global war on
He's
terror.
trying to play games on him.
Well, I think one big difference, Phil, is that we have a smart president, whereas in the past we've had dumb presidents. And I trust President Trump to get the
Trump's
job
like,
done, to do a
yeah.
good job for the American people, and to make sure that the mistakes of the past aren't repeated. Absolutely.
Look, JD's been great, but here's the simple thing, and I have, some people, I don't want wars. I want wars less than almost anybody.
Oh, wow.
Peace through
That's
strength. You know what? I've watched Iran for a long time. I told them out 20 years ago when I was a civilian that liked watching the world.
He saw the
And
tweets.
it's violent, vicious people. The leadership, violent, vicious people. They killed 32,000 protesters over the last 3 weeks.
That's it?
They put out a
Oh,
memo 2 days ago saying, if you protest, we will shoot you and kill you in the
And
streets.
your kids. Yep.
And somebody said, oh, there's not that many protests. Well, first of all, there are bombs going off all over the
Why
place.
aren't the
but,
protests?
even if there weren't, who's going to do that? Who's going to do it? They don't have any guns, and the other ones have laser machine gun, right?
True.
Every form of gun you can have. They shoot them right through the middle of the head. They're violent people. If they had a nuclear weapon, they would use it. And sometimes I'll have some of the people that, feel very strongly, like I do about wars.
Yeah.
And I say, do you think Iran is violent, and do you think their people are violent? Yes, leadership.
Yeah.
Do you think they should have a nuclear weapon,
No. No.
which is
No.
massive power? I don't even want to discuss how powerful it is. It's depressing. And they said, no, they shouldn't have. Definitely they shouldn't have. They said, and you don't want to fight war. No, we don't want to fight war. So
then you
these
want
are
to have it.
naive people that frankly are stupid.
Yes. Yes.
If you believe that
Exactly.
Iran should have a nuclear weapon, there's something wrong with you. Because they would use it within, the only question is within 1 hour if they get it, or 1 day. They will use it, and they
Thank
will blow
you.
up the entire Middle East, not
Thank you,
just Israel.
Donald.
They'll start with Israel, but they will blow. And you get to see that when they unexpectedly started sending missiles to every country within 1,000 miles of them. I mean, they're blowing up countries that were neighbors, not necessarily some friends. They actually were blowing up some friends. They were
Yep.
blowing up the people that handle their accounts.
Big
They're
mistake.
sending thousands of missiles into countries that didn't expect to be in the war
Yep.
because they wanted to take over the Middle East. And if I didn't terminate Barack Hussein Obama's horrible Iran nuclear
Barack
deal,
what?
which I did in my first term, one of the dumbest deals, perhaps the dumbest deal because of the danger involved, you would have had them have a nuclear weapon 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago. They would have used it, blown up the Middle East, and they would have then
Wow.
destroyed. And if these gorgeous B-2 bombers, give me that bomber, Andrews. Let me just hug that little sucker. Give me that bomber over there. Thank you. You knew immediately which one. This looks small, but in person it's very big. 'Cause it's the only
Wait.
plane capable of carrying
Wait, that's not a
200,000
real
bomb. So I don't know how they do it. 'Cause it's very sleek and nice, but it carries a lot of weapons and there's a lot of bombs. But well, I not sent this incredible machine times numerous hours
Okay.
to hit Iran at midnight with no moon, dead dark. Every single bomb was dropped right down the chute that it was supposed to hit. How they do it, who knows? Nobody else can figure. No other country can do it. No other country has our military or even close. And I think we've probably proven that with Venezuela and now with because we have done a number on Iran. But if I didn't do that, if I didn't decimate, I call it their nuclear dust, they would have had a nuclear weapon within 1 month after that bombing took place.
It's pretty bad.
And they would have used it on first Israel and then the Middle East. And you know that because all of those missiles that were launched against their neighbors were set long ago, long before they knew they would be using them this quickly. Had we not done this, you would have had a nuclear war that would have evolved into World War III. And more important, this is a war that there would have been nothing left. So we've done a great thing. The people that say it's okay for a very sick ideology, a very sick country in terms of its leadership, very good people, great people. But the people that say that, I think they're actually, they're either evil or they're stupid.
Say retarded.
So if you believe that Iran should not have a nuclear weapon, they should not have it, then you have to absolutely love what I've done, because in 2 weeks we have decimated them. They have no Navy, they have no Air Force, they have no anti-aircraft weapons, they have no leadership. The leadership is gone. But then they set up a new leadership to go, and then the new leader, and that leadership is gone. And now they think maybe the sun is gone. They're all gone. My biggest problem is I have no idea who we're talking to, because nobody ever heard of any of these people. They're all dead. But we did a job for the world, not a job for us, for the whole world. We took the worst country in 50 years and maybe longer from the ideological standpoint, a country that wanted to blow up the world, a country that is sick, and it has a religious fervor. And when you add religion, you know, people don't realize more people died in religious wars than every other war put together. And that's what you would have had here. And it was a terrible
Donald
thing.
With the fedora
I'm very proud of what we did. And I think JB understands better than most. If you give Iran a nuclear weapon, at least a very substantial part of the world would be blown up, and it'll be used almost immediately. Yes. You don't mind if I keep this here, do you? Isn't that a beautiful thing? You know, I used to look at it, and I said, it's a piece of art, but how can it be effective? It's so stealth. Think of it, Peter. 1 in the morning, it flies in, and they say, sir, they're in Iranian airspace. And I say, oh, and I'm watching it from the Situation Room with a couple of other very smart people, including some good generals, real generals, not television generals. And all of a sudden you see them dive, they start diving, and you see them 30,000, 20,000. Boy, I said, that was a lot. They went down fast to aim it. And they know they're coming, and they're smart, and they never saw them. And they're firing a little bit, but they don't know what they're firing at because they can't see a thing. And then you hear the biggest explosions that anybody's ever heard. Those are the biggest bombs. Outside of nuclear, those are the biggest bombs. And you say, what technology we have. What a great country.
What technology.
I built it, largely, I built it during my first term. I built it. I did not have to use it this much in my second term. But we had an incompetent president. We had an incompetent administration. And if that group of people, in any form, whether it's Kamala, him, it doesn't matter, would have had another 4 years, we would have had no country left.
Thank you, Mr. President. You say you're doing a job for the rest of the world. In your conversations with your counterparts, are they thankful?
They should be. Should be saying thank you.
Well, they should be thanking me. Because many of them get 90%. China, as an example, should be thanking us, but I don't expect to thank you. But they should be thanking us. Japan gets 95%. China, 91%. Many of the countries, South Korea gets a tremendous percentage of their oil and therefore their energy from the Straits, or as they call it, the Strait. And they should be not only thanking us, they should be helping us. What does surprise me is that they're not eager to help. There are a couple. We'll be announcing some names soon. There are some that really were right up front. I would announce their name now, other than maybe they'd prefer it not being announced for whatever reason. I will say this: it's a lot easier to get people today than it was 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, before we destroyed before we obliterated the country, before we took out, because they're down to about 8% of their missiles. They're down to a small portion of their drones.
Is that
and we've
thing?
demolished many of their factories where they make the missiles and the drones, and the rest are all following. Our military has been amazing. We hit Carg Island, took out every single thing on Carg Island except one thing. We left the pipes, because if we take out the pipes, it takes a long time to build them. And at some point, something's going to happen that's positive with respect to those pipes.
We'll see.
But there are some countries that greatly disappointed me. And I'm the one that got them to pay from 2% to 5% of GDP, NATO. And I get along great with those countries in NATO, but I always said, the problem with NATO is we'll always be there for them, but they'll never be there for us. And when I hear the UK, which was sort of considered the Rolls-Royce of allies, right? When you say they were the oldest, and they were going to be there. And I say it would be really helpful if you'd send over a couple of ships, and if you have some minesweepers, which they do, be very helpful. And the Prime Minister is a nice man. I think he's a very nice guy. He says, well, I'd like to ask my team. I said, you don't have to worry about a team. You don't have a team. You're the Prime Minister. You can make a decision. Well, I have to speak to my people. I said, you don't have to speak to anybody.
Just tell
So
me.
it was very disappointing. And then after we obliterated them, destroyed their military, their whole thing,
they need to
and
capture
it became a
Starmer,
much safer zone.
like Maduro,
He said, we're going to send over 2 aircraft carriers. I said, I don't want them anymore. I don't want them after we win. I want them before we start. I don't need the aircraft carriers after we've already won. So, those things are very disappointing. And you have to remember, we have 45,000 troops in Japan. We have 45,000 troops in South Korea. We have 45,000, 50,000 troops in Germany. We defend all these countries. And then, do you have any minesweepers? And they say, well, it would be possible for us not to get involved. I've been saying it for a long time. This is the greatest thing to come out of this. We spend trillions and trillions of dollars in NATO to defend other countries. And I always said, but if it ever comes time to defend us, they're not going to be there.
True.
Many of them would not be there. And we're going to have to start thinking more wisely in this country. Some have been very good. One or two have been good. I'll tell you, the red ones are at the right time. But there have been some that were right up there, Peter. They were right up there. They wanted to do it so much. Go ahead, Peter.
Thank you. You were talking about Iran a couple times today and what they did after Epic Fury began. He said they hit Qatar, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Bahrain, Kuwait. Nobody expected that. We were shocked. Are you surprised that nobody briefed you ahead of time that might be their retaliation?
Nobody, no. The greatest experts, nobody thought they were going to hit. They were, I wouldn't say friendly countries. They were like neutral. They lived with them for years. Peter, they were going to take over the Middle East. They were going to knock out Israel with their nuclear weapon. But after we knocked out their nuclear potential weapon, they started building missiles, thousands of missiles. And they were going to do it with missiles while they developed. These are sick people. While they developed nuclear, somehow they were going to start at a different site, because that site was, you saw the site, the mountain. They were going to go into a certain area, which we know exactly where it is, and they were going to do that. And it's incredible what we've done. I tell you, the job we've done. If I didn't terminate Barack Hussein Obama's Iran nuclear deal,
he said it
you would right now, well, Israel would be gone. It would be incinerated. And probably the Middle East likewise. And remember, they have all of those missiles. And I heard they were sending missiles to UAE. I said, that's strange. UAE is like the banker for Iran. They're like the banker. Qatar, their neighbors, they got along okay. Saudi Arabia. All of a sudden, Kuwait is getting hit. Bahrain is getting hit. All these countries are getting hit. There was no expert that would say that was going to happen. It's not a question of like, gee, should you have known? And if we did know, big deal. I mean, we have to do what we have to do. But we hit them so hard like nobody's ever been hit. We hit them very hard. And we've extinguished most of their missiles. We've extinguished most of their drones. We've extinguished most of the places where the missiles and the drones are built. We've fully extinguished 2 layers of leadership and probably a third, if you believe some stories. So we only have one thing, to have a little choke point. And they've used it very well for years, but it doesn't work. But I think this, if some of these countries that we've been good to for years, and maybe more important than that, some of these countries that get 90% and 95% of their energy from Hormuz.
True.
Hormuz, a famous, wonderful, beautiful place, but you wouldn't want to be necessarily sailing a boat there right now. Okay, you know why? Not because of them, because of us. Because we've taken out their entire navy. We've taken out every one of their drones. They call it a drone layer, a mine layer. There's specific boats that are meant to put mines on. How would you like to have a nation that has 22 boats where their sole function, they're very different looking boats. You wouldn't want one for your family. They're not pretty. Their sole function is to lift a mine into the water and drop it a certain number of feet down.
That's all they do.
But they had 22 of them. We've taken out all of them. But you can probably drop them off other boats. So we don't even know. By the way, we don't know that any mines have even been dropped. But the thought that they would scares people that have billion-dollar ships.
Boats, yeah.
Yeah.
It's an expensive boat.
Thank you, President Trump. I'd like to ask Vice President about his plans to go after possible fraud in California and New York. Of course, President Trump, first could I ask you, you said earlier today that the Supreme Leader, dead or alive. A couple interesting reports about him today. There's one report that he just narrowly escaped death in the first air strike.
Gay. Talk about being gay.
There's another report that he may actually be gay despite leading a theocracy that hangs gay people. How do you determine what's true, and do you have an assessment of this?
Is he
well, so far
gay?
nobody knows. If you look at his father, he used to give talks a lot,
Is he
talking
gay
about
or
death
not?
to America. He'd say death to America all the
He
time.
would.
When they say death
likes
to
saying
America,
that.
you should believe them, because that's what they would have. If they had a nuclear weapon, they would have used it.
Yes.
But they never had the chance. I never gave them the chance to do it. And other presidents should have done. I spoke to one of the former presidents who I actually like. I actually speak to some. I do like some people. It'd be shocking. And
Who,
he
Bill
said, I
Clinton?
wish I did what you did.
Bill?
Could have done it. Other presidents,
Was it
somebody
Bill?
should have done it. 47 years this went on. They call Iran the bully of the Middle East. And you could have never had the Abraham Accords. You could never have had peace in the Middle East. Now you're going to have peace. You could never do it with the dark cloud of a nuclear
The Ayatollah?
Iran.
The gay
But Iran is a shell
Damn,
of
not the
itself. It's no
Ayatollah.
longer a bully. It's the one that gets bullied. It's a bully that got beat up and beat the crap out of him.
Damn.
And they deserve that.
Fuck 'em.
You know, when you see
Fuck
a
'em.
soldier walking down the street without his arms, or being helped down the
Who
street
paid
because
for
he's
that
got no
bomb?
legs,
That's right.
or his face is blown to smithereens
Yeah,
with no
who
legs
paid
and
for
no
the
arms,
bomb?
those two, no legs, no arms,
Gay
and a face that got racked. That was done by roadside bombs. It's the favorite weapon of Soleimani, who I killed
Oh, yeah.
in my first administration.
Blew up the boat.
General Soleimani. Had I not killed him, that was the beginning of their downfall, because had he
beginning
not
of the
gone,
end.
it's possible that we would not be this far advanced in destroying Iran, because he was a really good general. He was a vicious, horrible man, but he was a brilliant general. And he was looking to knock out 5 of our military bases at one time.
What
and
an
the man
asshole.
that died with him
What a dick.
was the same, his counterpart in Iraq. And they were working together. And they got hit real hard. And if that didn't happen, we would have had a problem. But maybe more importantly than that, they were He was really the mastermind behind it. And they never found somebody to replace him in terms of the genius. I knocked him out, and that was a big step, knocking him out. But if we didn't get rid of the Obama deal, I terminated it against the wishes of my then Secretary of State. He was no Marco. Against the wishes
He
of
was no Marco.
a lot of people at the time. You remember that, Peter? A lot of people. Had I not terminated, remember that, Stephen? You remember? They were not. This is not. That deal was a disaster. That was a road to a nuclear weapon. They would have had it 3 years ago, and it would have been used. I would say 2 to 3 years ago.
Maybe.
And it would have been used in
What was
the
the
Middle East.
question?
And by the way,
Why
after
were
they
you
were
the best
finished that,
president?
they were coming over here.
Yeah.
They never got a chance to do it.
I just want to ask you about something very
Why were
interesting
you
that
right
said
about
twice
everything?
today. That you talked to another former president about the Iran strikes. Was it George W. Was it Bill Clinton?
I don't want to say. I don't want to say. Because
Barack Obama?
a member of the party, they have Trump derangement syndrome.
Oh my
Somebody
God.
that happens to like me, and I like
It's Bill Clinton.
that person is a smart person. But that person said,
Oh my God, it was.
I wish I did it.
I mean, maybe it was Obama.
But I don't want to get into I don't want to get him
Maybe.
into trouble. Maybe, hey,
That would be
you know
funny
what?
if it was Obama.
I think you probably know. You know, it's interesting.
I think you
And
probably
maybe he'd
know.
be proud. And I could even ask him, maybe you'd like me to reveal your name to Peter at Fox. High, well, at least you have high ratings. Your ratings.
If it was Obama, that would be funny.
Congratulations.
Can I ask you another question about the war? If Iran, as you said, totally obliterated, got the missiles, got the first 2 rounds of leadership, Air Force gone, Navy gone, can we wrap this war up this week?
This week?
Yeah, sure.
Wait,
I
he
don't
just
think
said
so.
yes. Sure, we gotta wrap the war up this
And
week.
we're going to have a much safer world when it's
Just out of
wrapped up.
nowhere.
It'll be wrapped
Yeah,
up.
sure.
We're going to have a much safer world. I had an obligation to do this. I didn't want to, I call it an excursion. I didn't want to make this journey. We had the highest stock market in history. We had everything was good.
Yeah, I mean,
and
get
I
it
know
done
exactly.
before
I know
Crimson Desert. Yeah,
we're going to
true.
do it. People are going to raise the price of oil.
I think it was Obama.
But
Maybe.
I know that. But that's a very small
Obama
thing
knew a lot
compared to
about bombing.
allowing them to have. You want to
did
see
that
the
a
stock
lot.
market go down? Start letting them hit you with nukes.
Yeah.
Okay. I think I said it this morning. I think it's a very small price to pay. And frankly, I thought it was going to go down much more. If you want to know the truth, I assumed that it was going to go down much more, only because people don't understand. To a large, it's a big chess game, at a very high level. It's a very high level chess, the highest. And I'm dealing with very smart players. These are smart people. They don't get there. You know, when you deal with some of these people, you're dealing with high level intellect, very high IQ people. These are not Jasmine Crockett and her group. These are smart people. These are really smart people, and violent people, and vicious people, and some very nice people. And
Which
some are
group?
very nice, but violent. They turn violent.
And it's,
But you know what? If I didn't do what I did,
Group.
we would have been hit. Number one,
Women? Yeah.
very important, was the termination of Obama's horrible deal. And number 2, this beautiful plane hitting them 8 months ago, whatever it was, and taking out their nuclear capacity. That totally threw them for a loop. If they had that
What do you
bomb
mean,
at
you
either
people?
time, 5 years ago or 7 months ago, if they had that bomb would have been used almost immediately.
Mr. President, on domestic policy, bringing home next week when this vote takes place in the U.S. Senate, will the Vice President's vote be?
I think it's imperative that it gets done. I'm not sure it is. You know, the Democrats have horrible policy. It's just incredible. But they stick together. It's the one thing they do.
They do.
Their Supreme Court members stick together. Those appointed by a Democrat stick together. If Barack Hussein Obama appoints a member of the Supreme Court, that member never goes against him. And they're proud about it. They say, I don't give a damn if it's good or bad. that man appointed me and I'm never going to let him down. I don't say that's right, wrong. I just say they stick together. Republicans go the opposite way. If Donald Trump appointed me, I'm going to show the world that I can be totally just and I can be independent of Donald Trump.
He's making fun
He's
of
not controlling me.
Yeah.
And I don't want to control them. I just want to have smart decisions. They gave us a decision on tariffs the other day that won't change tariffs.
We got
I can
Clarence
do it a different
Thomas.
way. I
That's
always
the
knew I could do it a
important
different way. This was a little quicker, a little
Just
easier,
need
a
8
little
more of
better.
him.
But they gave it a decision that could cost this country $500 billion to pay people back. Because now I have to start the tariffs all over again. Very simple.
Base, yeah.
And what happens with the money I've already collected?
Yeah.
Why didn't they say, starting from now, go the other way? $500 billion, perhaps. It's so sad. But one thing about the Democrats, they stick together.
They're
like glue.
coordinated.
They impeached me twice for absolutely no reason, unanimously. Fortunately, the Republicans stuck together, and it was something. It was pretty wild. But the Democrats have horrible policy: transgender for everybody, open borders, men playing in women's sports.
Not a good one.
But the one thing they do have is they stick together, no matter how bad the policy. It's embarrassing to watch them try to defend it. And in a way, I say, as a Republican, in a way, I say, thank goodness they have bad policy, because you'd never beat
It's
them.
easy to run against them.
We have something in there now, the Save America Act. Voter ID with a picture, right? That's a 99% issue.
Who the fuck
Even
doesn't
among
want
Democrats,
that?
you know, Democrats
Who the
call it
fuck
89%.
doesn't want
on
that?
And then they
Jesus.
have proof of citizenship. And then they have no mail-in ballots. No mail-in ballots. We have no mail-in. You go to California, they send out like 38 million ballots.
Yeah.
Some Democrats get 7, 8 ballots. Republicans are a lot of times calling in, where's my ballot? Where's my ballot? They're lucky to get one. Jimmy Carter, probably the greatest thing he ever did. I thought he was a nice man, not a great president, to put it mildly.
Yeah, guy's kind
His
of a
attack
retard.
broke out in Iran, not too good. I think ours is slightly better,
Yeah.
wouldn't you say? But Jimmy Carter, the one thing he did after he left with Scoop Jackson and some others, they formed a very elite council.
Get rid of mail-in votes.
Committee that came out and said very strongly, no mail-in ballots, because
Who
if
the
you
hell
have-
does not
we're
have
the
ID?
only country in the world that has
According to
mail-in
Democrats,
ballots like
black
we do.
people.
The only country in the
Black
whole
people
world.
can't
People
get
tried
IDs.
it. France tried it and they went away.
They don't know where the DMV is.
They're now doing paper ballots, watermark paper, which is very hard to cheat.
They can't afford
So,
computers.
When you look at what happened in this country, we really have to fix it. That'll be very popular. The other thing we put in there just as the best of, I call it the best of Trump. We have the three things I
call it
just
the
said.
best of Trump.
Right? But then I added on no men playing in women's sports, and I added in no transgender surgery, the mutilation of our children.
Who would do this?
We have no mutilation of our children.
Who would do this?
No transgender.
Oh.
I think they say that's an 80% issue. I think they're 99% issues, but
Who
whether
the
they're
fuck?
80%
Yeah.
or 99%. The problem is we have a couple of Republicans. They shouldn't be allowed.
They
they're
shouldn't be
horrible
allowed to.
people,
Yeah.
and they're willing
Yeah.
to vote against anything. And we have all the Democrats will vote against it. So I think it hurts the Democrats to vote against it because I'm going to expect all the Republicans to say that
What was the question?
so-and-so
by
that
the
they're
way?
voting against voted against the saving of our children from transgender mutilation, right? That's
What was
pretty
the
unpopular.
question?
They want men and women sports. That's pretty
Who the
unpopular.
hell knows?
They want voter ID, but the Democrats don't.
The SAVE Act.
Everybody
that's
wants
right.
voter ID. Everybody wants proof of citizenship.
Is this the SAVE Act
And
right
most
here?
people don't want mail-in voting because they know it's a fraud. Touches too many hands. The postman gets it, this one gets it, that one. So these are all issues that are in the 90s to 100. I would say some are virtually 100%. And the interesting thing is they're that way not only with Republicans. I'm not talking about leadership. I'm talking about
Just a minute.
they're that way also, most importantly, with the people. The people of our country want voter ID. The people of our country want proof of citizenship. And that includes 88%, 89% of Democrats. And I think the Republicans, Eric Schmidt, Rick Scott, Tim Scott, I speak to so many of them. They all are. I hope John Thune can get it, of course. He's trying. I mean, he told me this morning I spoke to him. He's trying. I think it'll be a very, very bad thing for our country if they don't. And we're just asking for basic things. Think of it. You can't have voter ID. You know, in California, if you ask a person to show their identification, they have the right to put you in jail. If you're an official and you say, may I please see your identification, you're subject to going to jail. That's how crazy it's gotten. With a low IQ person, you know, because Gavin Newsom has admitted that he has learning disabilities. Honestly, I'm all for people with learning disabilities, but not for my president. I think the president should not have learning disabilities. Okay?
Talk about Gavin?
And I know it's highly controversial to say such a horrible thing. President of the United States, Gavin Newsom, admitted that he has learning disabilities, dyslexia. Everything about him is dumb. But then he looked at the audience and said, but I'm smarter than you, or something like that. That was pretty silly.
Oh,
so now on top of everything else, I call him a racist because it happened to be a black audience. I will tell you this. I think it was the worst interview I've ever seen of any human being in my life. Anybody else have any questions?
Will it be necessary to use even a limited ground force to secure nuclear material remains in Iran as part of that?
He's not going to say.
And secondly, have you made a decision?
You mean to go in and get it?
He's not going to say.
Why would I tell you with that guy?
Yeah.
And secondly,
you know, I can't stand reports. Sir, will you attack Carg Island? Will you occupy Carg? They ask me these questions.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be mean, but they're stupid questions. If any president answered those questions, they shouldn't be president.
Yeah.
And secondly, sir, do you still plan to travel to Beijing?
I don't know. We're working on that right now. We're speaking to China. I'd love to. But because of the war, I want to be here.
Can they take me with them? Can I go to China? I want to go to China.
So we've requested that we delay it a month or so.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to being with them. We have a very good relationship.
Yeah, can they pick me up?
Because of the war. There's no tricks to it either. It's not like, oh, gee, I'm waiting. It's very simple. We got a war going on. I think it's important that I be here.
Just go. Maybe I should.
It could be that we delay it a little bit. Not much, Peter.
Cuba is next.
Uh-oh.
Is Cuba, whatever you do with the military there, it seems like something. Will that look more like Iran or Venezuela?
Probably Venezuela.
They're talking to us. It's a failed
I
nation.
can't tell you that.
They have no money, they have no oil, they have no
Their
nothing.
power, like, their shit's
nice
out.
Land.
Yeah.
They have nice landscape, you know. It's a beautiful island. I think they have great people. You know, I know so many people from Cuba that were treated terribly, and they're over here, and they became rich. Very entrepreneurial people, very smart. I know a lot from Florida, especially. There's so many people. A friend of mine started over nothing. He's now the largest owner of gas stations in the country. I'm a Cuban. I also know, I was just with a fantastic person.
Marco Rubio's going to run Cuba? Yeah, of course. Who else?
And this family wants to go back to Cuba to visit it. They haven't been back in like 50 years or something. They largely come from Cuba. And we'll see what happens. They were asking me about that. They want to go back. Not only Fanjul, a lot of Cubans have said, oh boy,